everybody. We'll give everybody a second to settle in. Welcome. Hopefully we can keep the morning going with all the energy you guys had from the earlier session. I'm gonna do like one and then we can get started. Okay, great.
All right, guys, let's step in and try and use the seats that are available here.
Yeah.
And keep it quiet for our wonderful panel.
The good news is
Thank you.
In high demand. Okay, so as you can imagine, in a room full of marketers, one of the things we talked about being potentially the most compelling and interesting is how do these people get to the jobs that they're in? What are their remits? And maybe what things have they tapped into from past experiences that they leverage in their current roles? So Travis, you're closest to me. I'm going to start with you.
So Travis Freeman, I lead all of our media practice at Inspire Brands. So for those of you who don't know Inspire Brands, we're the second largest restaurant company in the US. So Dunkin', Sonic, Arby's, JJ's, Baskin, Buffalo Wild Wings. I think we're maybe missing some more. So I've been here for about a year. My role is completely new. Before this, I was the global head of media at Uber. It's a big reason why I came over to Inspire Brands, because we really do think of ourselves as a tech brand versus a restaurant brand. So we're really kind of building it that way. Before that, I was at Twitter. I have lots of stories there if anyone wants to talk later. And most of my career actually grew up through Dentsu. So I was the agency side. They're purely digital for a really long time.
Okay, cool. Matt, what's your story?
So I've been at J&J for 17 years, which is a crazy stat, but I've had about 12 different jobs. I actually started in finance. I spent about 6 years there. Did not like that, so that's why I'm here now. Went back to grad school, and I've bounced between brand marketing and digital. So came up in brand marketing as a lot of the digital practices were emerging, decided this is a good place where I can apply my analytical skills, but also scratch the creative itch, and then kind of bounce back and forth. And right now, for the last 2 years, been building our in-house growth and performance team, which is essentially in-housing of digital capabilities, analytics, data, content creation, things of that sort.
Awesome. Okay, you're up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Kristin Kroepfl, and I am CMO for Quaker North America. And my path to this role is, I'm actually a boomerang employee for PepsiCo. I have 13 years in total, 3 years most recently with the organization, but spent most of my career in packaged foods across brand equity, innovation, strategy. I had a brief stint in sales, which was a phenomenal experience. I recommend that to any marketer to understand what it's like to be on the other side of that desk and how what your brands and your investments back in your brands actually mean to a buyer. And I spent a little bit of time in private equity as well. And I recommend that experience for those who can stomach a little bit of chaos and who can helicopter up to strategy and down to rolling up their sleeves and actually crawling on pallets in a warehouse on occasion.
Sounds like you guys have all been able to trade on past experiences in your current roles. Today's session is all about innovation and trends, so we want to spend a few minutes exploring the intersection of those two topics. Kristin, I'm going to start with you. It is said that you have tripled the value of Quaker's innovation pipeline in just 3 years. How have current trends impacted your media strategy and overall categorical strategy as you think about innovation?
Yeah, I love that question, and I think I am an innovator at heart. I'm the kind of marketer who always says, why can't we do that? And if somebody says, no, we can, I say, yeah, we can. It's just a matter of choices, right? And so I think I take that approach to media as well. And one of the brands that is the most fun to innovate with in media is Captain Crunch. So Captain Crunch exists its brand purpose is all about creating morning adventure in the morning, spoonful by spoonful. And it is one of those things where we follow where the adventure takes us. And we're celebrating Captain Crunch's 60th birth year this year. And we take real life experiences, like we took over Manhattan morning commute with the SS Guppy and created a real world experience with our consumers, and we brought that to our digital fans through social media investments and amplification. We play around with technology quite a lot. With Snap, for example, is one of our partners. We bring adventure to the digital space. We've We're into audio as well. Crunch is an audio cue that's associated with our brand. And we recently collaborated with 50 Cent and did a mashup. And we're distributing that through Pandora with 3D sound, right? So it's a brand that is really fun to activate multiple ways in multiple media vehicles, and our consumer is there. And that's the important thing, is we follow the consumer. So if the consumer is there, we go. Yep. We don't invest just to be there because it's interesting and fun. It's always with purpose.
Yeah. Matt, you were saying earlier you're obsessed with ChatGPT, right?
No.
Tell us a little bit of how you use innovation.
Really, it's very similar. We have to use innovation to keep pace with our consumers. They're changing their behaviors dramatically, daily, weekly, monthly. And, I always tell people, look at your media plan from 2 years ago. I'd venture it looks materially different than it did, today versus 2 years ago, because they're on different platforms. They're using different tools. They're watching longer form, shorter form, audio, whatever. But we're always asking ourselves, what's the job to be done? How can we help a consumer? How can we help them make a better choice? Can we give them a good experience, a fun experience? And if we can't answer that first, we don't do it. There's unlimited opportunities. You should see my inbox. And you have to choose the ones that are actually going to drive the business. And that's our North Star.
Yeah. Travis?
We have to kind of play this fine balance, right, between we don't want to do innovation just for innovation's sakes, right? It's based upon what our guests are actually wanting from us, right? So I think that's, for us, as we look at, first and foremost, we have so much data, we have so much first-party data across all of our brands. We a lot of times know what our guests want before they want it, right? So it's making sure that the innovation that we're kind of pulling in there intersects with that, but also is driving sales. We're not really a brand that loves to just do PR to do PR. We are investing in brands that are actually driving ROAS. So every single dollar that we're putting into market, whether it's an innovation bucket, whether it's a traditional bucket, if we're not getting exponential return coming back into it, it's done, right? I think that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
Yeah. Building off of that for a little bit, we talk a lot about finding that balance, right, of making sure that you're investing in tried and true, and you can 100% sort of figure out and point to ROAS, but it's important to be able to take risks and try new things. As you think about a strategy that both reflects sort of sound planning and agility, how do each one of you sort of address that balance? We'll start with you, Matt.
Sure. You have to essentially call it up front, call your shot that I'm going to spend 10%, 20% of my budget to learn something. Yeah. And the key is to really set the KPI, because it may not be short-term return. If it's brand new innovation, it may be to gather data, to build an organizational muscle, but having a measurement plan in place and then being ready to scale. So like Travis just said, we don't test the test. We don't either. And we're not trying to do it to get in the trades. That's not the objective. We're trying to drive the business, get people to buy baby shampoo or whatever. So everything is done with an eye towards, I think this might be a big thing a year from now, and I need to figure out how to do it well now so I can invest as part of my core tried and true in 2024, 2025. So it's all with an eye towards scaling and then robust measurement, essentially.
I'd love to build off of that because we have a similar approach. We have a 5, 15, 80 media investment kind of tiering system where 5% of our budget is all about exploring, right? And it's okay if that exploration fails, right? So no risk and no fear of failure in that bucket. And it's meant exactly to do what was just described, which is push into new frontiers that we believe have scale potential over the long term. 15% of our spend pivots off of investments like that we made in prior years, right? So we're scaling as we go. And then roughly 80 is the hardworking, proven ROI, effectiveness, efficiency kind of vehicles that we know are going to drive brand growth. But there's a couple other things that we do to unlock the power of those types of investments. One is I have a CMO investment pool that I allocate back out to the businesses based on Shark Tank-like competitions. So quarterly, the team will get together. I'll issue a challenge. They'll come back and they'll pitch to my leadership team, and we say, okay, that one. And I have an example that I want to share a little bit later about a program that's live now based on that style. So that's one thing, is making sure you protect those dollars, making sure that you generate excitement and energy around those dollars and those spends within your team, because your teams are the ones that are going to make it happen. And then the two other things I would say are having really sharp media expertise, whether it's internal like we have, combined with external partners, because you're never going to know it all, right? So you need to surround yourself with experts who can guide you as you go. And then the other thing that we do is we have an internal agency and content team, so we can scale really quickly. We don't have to issue a work statement or a formal briefing process. We can just go at when the opportunity strikes.
Travis, are you a 5, 10, 80 kind of guy?
Yeah, no, we don't. So, I mean, I think the cool thing about us is, we have well over $1 billion in our ad fund, but when you start to kind of parse that out across 6 brands, it's actually not that much for some of the smaller brands. So I think the way that we kind of think about this is leaning on other brands' learnings and then apply those to the others. So if you think about like a Dunkin' or an Arby's, which has much larger ad funds, I can do more risks there, right? Because I have the money to do it. And then I'm then able to take those learnings and apply those to like a JJ's, right? Or a B-Dubs who doesn't have as much money. Conversely, some of our smaller brands that maybe doesn't have the kind of like, kind of reach that maybe our big brands do, they can take more risk in kind of like the fun voice type of world. I don't know if you guys saw, probably not, but like maybe like 3 months ago, there was this whole trend that kind of JJ started around like girthy pickles. And it was like, they went all in on the innuendo, right? About like what that actually is and how that, like how JJ's has the best. And like, our other brands wouldn't have been able to do that, right? But then they were able to learn from that, right, and being able to kind of apply it. So I think when you think about the money side, right, we're able to lean on our big brands, apply those learnings to the smaller brands. But when you think about kind of like, can we say this? What are people going to think? It's more kind of the brands that have the ability and the authority to do that, and then understanding, does that then apply to some of our bigger brands?
I'm so jealous I'd never get that approved. Good on you.
I was going to say, I think we covered it from baby shampoo to girthy pickles, so maybe we get the award
Different
for
culture.
most range in a panel. Speaking of range, we talked a little bit about tried and true testing. One of the things that we've seen at Vox, and we talked a little bit about in the prep for being a tried and true form of communication with consumers is content, right? And content plays different roles for each of you and plays different roles in how you communicate with consumers. Can you tell us a little bit about your content strategy? Travis, maybe we'll head that way.
So I mean, I think what we're trying to think of right now, and we're doing a lot of tests, is like, what do our guests want to hear from us? I think we've had such a legacy of like letting our above the line agencies kind of create everything, and it kind of all kind of tied back to this like big creative platform. But what we're learning as we're starting to become more nimble is like, they don't always want to hear that from us. They want to hear from other people. They want to hear from content that was created a bit more kind of bespokely. I think JJ's is another good example of like, normally on Reddit, which is one of our fastest growing partners, just from a performance standpoint, we would just put a normal video, right? Or a normal kind of display. We finally kind of pulled back. We took the risk, and it's literally stick figures, right? It's like a GIF of a guy with a sub. And in no world would we have ever, probably 2 years ago, been like, this is great, signed off, right? Like, or Anomaly, our agency, would have been like, what the hell are you doing? But we have real-time measurement. So in real time, we know that that is performing better than any other content on the platform. And then that allows for us to then start to work with creators who work exclusively on Reddit. So it's the balance, right, of making sure that we have our above the line creative that is telling the creative platform, but making sure that we're understanding and using those signals from our guests to be like, they actually don't want to hear from us in this space with that content. It's very different. It has to be made for the platform.
I mean, for us, we've invested heavily in content, especially in the last 2 years. It's why my team exists. We have an entire content team. And historically, it was, we had a website because every brand has a website. I need people to go to johnsons.com, of course. We send emails because brand send emails, but really being purposeful about that. What is the consumer looking for? Are they looking for ingredient information? Are they looking for tips on how to give their child their first bath, or whatever it is that's going to help them? Consumers have more choices than ever, and more and more, I think content's going to be the tiebreaker. Where we know their consumer journeys are fragmented. They're touching, they're seeing an ad, but then they're going to a website. They're listening to an influencer. They're going to read a review on Amazon. It all has to hang, because if it falls down anywhere on that journey, it's too easy for them to buy something else. It's good for consumers, bad for me. There are great substitutes in every category today, just about. So you have to win that dollar every time. And often it's going to be content. I think that's going to be that equalizer, and we've stood up a team to lead website, to tie SEO with SEM, and our CRM to really go deep on our first-party data, the journeys, all of that, versus Happy Mother's Day in May and Happy Father's Day in June. What do they actually need? And that's where we're spending a lot of energy.
Yeah, I think what we're in equal agreement on is content is king, right? So 75% of the value you get out of your marketing activity is driven by the content, right? But so we invest heavily in creative because we know it drives ROI. But you cannot invest in creative without understanding context, right? And the vehicle, right? So what we're doing is looking at the consumer opportunity and the consumer need, as was stated. So for example, on oatmeal, we know that weather triggers oatmeal consumption, right? When it's cold outside, you want to eat your soup and eat your oatmeal. So we leverage that insight to generate the right content at the right time and use, for example, Yahoo to trigger that creative when temperature drops in certain regions of the country. And we also customize which product we're advertising based on the consumer. So if you like hearty oatmeal and you're looking at health as one of your primary drivers, you probably are going to see a standard oatmeal advertising with the Quaker guy in the tube. If you're a mom with kids, you're probably going to see an instant oatmeal ad. If you are high HEI and you're into fitness, you're probably going to see a Quaker protein oatmeal ad. But all with the insight around what is going to connect with consumers and what is the content that we need to deliver, and then we lean into technology in order to make that happen.
Thank you. I'm going to break from the traditional panel style and ask each person a different question versus building off of their individual questions. There may be some uniformity, but we're going to try it. So Matt, I'm going to start with you. Earlier you talked a little bit about the inception, the expansion of your in-house digital team, and that journey. Can you share with us what it's been like and the learnings so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really born out of where I see the entire industry going. Brand has been dominant, and historically, in the last, 10, 20 years, digital's been kind of off on an island. There's the digital team, sometimes it's off in the center, but really, it's not an or, it has to be an and. We have to bring together equity and performance, and that's what we're really trying to do. My team sits embedded within our brand teams, so those teams are leading the strategy, the consumer insights, all of the longer-term planning innovation. My team's really activating, and our time frame is now. It's real time. It's real-time optimizations, reacting to trends, things like that, but working really hand in hand. That's a huge shift for an organization, especially an organization that's over 100 years old that has done things a certain way. But I think the challenge has been to really make sure that we're all going after the same objectives. I am adamant that my team does not have their own goals. We adopt the goals of the brand. We have Neutrogena goals. We have Aveeno goals. Whatever brand you're working on, that's what we're all working against. And we all play different roles in that ecosystem, but it's really then finding the people who can play all those different parts. We haven't had media experts or content experts, e-commerce experts in-house. We've relied so heavily on agencies that we sort of outsource thought and strategy.
Yeah.
We're not in-housing media buying or things like that, but I like to think that we're in-housing more of the strategy, the analytics, so that we can be better partners and really have collaborative relationships with our agencies, with our media partners, things of that sort.
Travis, earlier conversations you referenced Inspire being a little bit more of a tech company. can you tell us how you define that, why that's a strategy for you?
Yeah, I mean, so Paul, our CEO, talks about Inspire being a restaurant company like no other. And a big piece of that is we look at kind of the restaurant vertical as one of the last to be disrupted. Yeah. It is very legacy in a lot of the ways that brands are activating or planning or whatever. So everything that we do is kind of based upon a central data spine and a tech spine that all brands have to activate against, right? So whether it be first-party data, all of that sits within a single CDP, right? That is all brands together. Whenever we think about measurement, it is one way to measure, right, for everything. And a lot of that is built by our own internal team, right? So we do quarterly MMMs. It's an internal MMM that we've built, but then we partner with in-market to look at foot traffic, and we look at that daily. So we're able to kind of see causal relationships around foot traffic and what that's actually doing for sales. And we're doing that daily, right? Which I think a lot of brands in our position are waiting on the MMMs, kind of like 6 months later, then making optimizations. We're making them in real time. So a lot of even what I'm doing is I'm building my team the same way I built my team at Uber, right? So it is truly around this notion of what we talk about day trading attention, right? So in real time, depending on what platforms are working at that particular moment, we are moving money. Right. So you see our in-house buyers from a digital standpoint, like you'll go by, they make me feel ancient because they're all like, 22, 23, just out of school, like econ stat majors, like with their headphones on and they can't talk to me, but like they'll have like 5 monitors, right? And they're day trading. And it's just like, so everything that we think about is like tied back to data, tied back to technology. It's not hunches. Yeah. It is truly how it's defined, like through this single way that all brands are consistently through.
Kristin, I'm going to ask you what everyone wants to know. Who won the competition and what was the idea?
Oh, okay. So the last Shark Tank competition we had was the winning idea, what came out of the Quaker Rice Snacks team. And it was based on a consumer insight around the large rice cakes, right? I think they've been around forever. Most people in the room probably know what they are, but consumers recently the recipes are trending on large rice cakes, and it's all about these unique and creative ingredients and topping ideas. So there's a very culinary lens that consumers are organically taking with our product. So there was a consumer insight. The second insight was Megan Trainor, who is all about that base, is an authentic brand lover for Quaker Rice Snacks. And they saw, hey, wait a minute, there's this base that we have in large rice cakes. We've got this celebrity influencer who loves our product, and by the way, has a song all about that base. Maybe we should put those two things together. And so they did, and we loved the idea because, again, grounded in the consumer insight, it was authentic, and we know recipe content is really important to our consumers, in social media. So we leveraged her social media footprint. We dropped the first in a series of several videos that you'll be seeing over the course of the next few quarters, with her promoting our brand, and it's a whole lot of fun.
We tried with different AV. We would have played a clip for you guys. I'm going to turn to a darker place. We're in a tougher time, economically speaking. Obviously, there are some trade-offs that marketers need to make in current constructs. I want to ask each of you how you find that balance of ensuring that you are, staying top of mind, but being bottom line conscious. Travis, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, I think we're in a fortunate place that our budgets haven't dropped, right? Like, I think in the restaurant industry, a lot of this is funded from the ad funds, right? So basically, just it stays pretty constant. I think for us, what we've had to really be conscious of, like right now, is what the messaging strategy is, utilizing the same dollars. So I think while some of our brands, like historically, might have been thinking about equity, right, as like a primary KPI, now a lot of it's about value. Right. And how do we make sure that our guests know that they can still come to Dunkin', right, and get a $2 iced coffee and then add for a donut for $1, right? So while historically maybe that wouldn't been like first of mind, like now it is. Other consumers are really looking for levity, so earthy pickles. Like that's not driving, right, our bottom line, right? But it's driving brand love, and it's driving a relationship with our guests that they need, right, in that particular moment. So again, it's all getting back to the insights. We have to understand what our guests are actually looking for from us, and then making sure that the messaging is actually appropriate, whether it be now, whether it be in a year when there isn't a recession, whatever's going on, it's all going to stay constant. But for us, that's been the biggest pivot, is the messaging strategy shift versus how do we do more with less.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us in CPG, we're battling private label in a recessionary period. So that's something we have to think a lot about. And to my earlier point around the importance of content, it's doubly important right now, but I think it plays a different role. It's how do we make sure consumers feel confident in their purchases? So we operate in some confusing categories. If someone needs to figure out the best product for them, what's the best under-eye treatment, what's the best moisturizer, the best shampoo, that, they have choices. And if I can be the one to help them make the right choice that they feel really good about, that's a huge deal. And I think the temptation is, in times like this, is to move away from equity and invest in performance, but you still have to maintain that balance, because if you just look at your short-term ROI and you just go after only the tried and true and only the things that are going to get someone to buy something at Walmart tomorrow, I'm hurting my brand next year in a really big way, and I'm missing an opportunity to create a relationship and actually mean something, because they do have choices. And I think quality really becomes something we have to think a lot about. Is it a good experience? Does it look like it's well done? If your website looks like it was made on GeoCities, that's an OG sort of reference for you there. It is, it's not going to be, they're going to be like, this brand's, they're jokers. I'm going to go buy something else. So quality, help, utility, I think those are the things we think a lot about, and really make sure we're balancing that with the performance marketing that, the day trading. Like, you got to keep the lights on, but you have to keep one eye towards the long term as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with a lot of what was said, and I rest on maybe two principles. One is, if your goals are aligned with the organization's goals, then and you're delivering against your goals, that is a flywheel that's going to breed continued investment. And we've been doing, I've been enrolled for 3 years now, and you mentioned that same principle earlier. Our goals are the same, and we've been investing against in that principle, and we are now we're the fastest growing food company, over $3 billion in revenue, because that flywheel, right? Because we made smart decisions a couple years ago, continues for us today. The second thing I'll say is that marketing and brand building is more important now than ever. When we're facing tough economic times, when there's disruption in the market because of the economy or other reasons, that's when you invest. And if you make that case, and you've got the content and you've got the right media vehicles, then you're going to be successful. And so that's the internal lens. The external lens is, how do we serve our customers and our consumers? And what we do is value framing, and we get very purposeful around, okay, we ask each one of our brand teams to understand, how do you frame value in the right way for your brand to motivate consumers? I'll give you an example. Quaker oatmeal, right? There's value per bowl that we can compare to other breakfast choices, and in comparison, those look pretty good, with the exception of course, QSR breakfast. So we look at cents per serving. For other consumers, it's about managing their food budget across the day. Well, if you fill up on a bowl of oatmeal in the morning, chances are you're not going to need to snack throughout the day because you're satisfied longer. Many lower income consumers medical issues are crazy disruptive to household budgets. And so many of our shoppers in channels like dollar or mass really care about protecting their health. And so for those consumers, we focus on cholesterol-lowering benefits or other health benefits of oatmeal. So it really comes down to asking some radical questions, flipping the narrative, and really digging in to understand what value do you truly offer to your consumers and your customers in an environment like this, and then designing around those things. And the media environment, by the way, is our friend, because we can take those messages, those custom messages, and we can deliver them directly to the consumer who cares most about them.
I'm going to turn it over to you guys in 1 minute. We've got one more question for this group. This is a choose your own adventure question. So we talked a little bit about emerging trends and sort of being nimble and being ready. Either what is one way you ensure you stay ready, or one prediction for the future?
Yeah. I'm like, you're making eye contact. So I'll choose being ready for the future. I mean, I think we as Inspire sit on a lot of data, right? And we look at our loyalty programs across all of our brands very importantly and very preciously. We think about loyalty as an exchange of goods. So if a guest is willing to give us their information to sign up for loyalty, it is then on us to make sure that they're getting something in return. So what I'm just making sure that we're staying ahead of is using all of these data signals. We have an Inspire ID now, right? Is the central ID across everything that we do. We partner with Epsilon to think about how all of that activates. And every single day, we're getting more and more data. So as I talked about before, it's like a lot of times we know what our guests want before they know. So it's making sure that we're staying ahead of that, giving them what they want, making sure that we're living up to our side of the bargain when they gave us that information, and we have to make sure that we're giving them something in return, whether that be first access to products, whether that be value, whether it be whatever it is, we have to make sure that we're giving them that.
So I'm not going to predict the future, but my advice on how to prepare for the future is ethnography. But put yourself in the shoes of the consumer and experience firsthand the media and the ways that they consume media, like you would if you were designing a food product, or if you were developing a positioning statement, or any other brand equity building types of activity. Live it, learn it, experience it, and then that obviously you're not going to be able to consume it all. Surround yourself with experts. Don't be afraid to lean into a network like the panel up here. I'm learning from each one of you. Surround yourself with the people who know and can advise you and predict the future for you along the way.
My advice would be to prepare to do something and do it boldly. So don't test the test to win, test the scale. It doesn't mean, don't try to get in the trades. Try to find what your next big thing's going to be, and do it boldly, though. You can't do a $20,000 test and expect to get a learning that's going to be meaningful to you. You have to take some shots and be ready to fail, and that's okay. But be ready to take some of those chances and do it with some gusto, I would say. And my prediction for the future is, I'll throw an extra bonus in here for you guys. For CPG specifically, is that retail media and national media become the same thing, and we retire the term retail media.
Hot takes. I think we're ready for questions from the audience.
The fastest half hour, 40 minutes it was awesome. Let's give them all a round of applause really quick. Fantastic job. Questions from the audience. Anybody have a question? We've got such a great panel right over here.
Josh Rosen from Reticle AI. Thank you. Lots of insights and some follow-ups. I don't want to be controversial and get kicked out on my first day of my first Brand Innovators event here. But the question I did have is, what are your focuses, you included as well, for innovation and trends coming up for 24 and 25?
I'll start, since no one ever asks me questions. For Vox Media, we're betting big on audio. So we've got a new podcast with Esther Perel. We've got Kara and Scott Galloway for Pivot. So audio will be a big part of our content strategy going forward.
I mean, I think ours is simple. It's still ROAS. Everything that we're doing is ROAS. Measuring everything in real time, which is making our media mix very different than it ever has been in the past. If you look at our brands probably 3 years ago, we were very linear heavy. It doesn't mean that we're still not going to be participating in the upfronts the same way that we did, but the mix of what linear and OTT is going to be completely different. And I think this upfront is going to be the first one that really makes that seismic change. We see all day long that OTT outperforms linear in our MMM. So how do we just make sure that we're not on linear to be on linear, and we're not on linear just to make sure that people can point to it and be like, oh, I saw your ad. Yeah. Like, it's like we're actually driving results.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it depends on the brand, but at a macro, so every brand's gonna have different, focus areas depending on the consumer. But at a macro level, I think it's really bringing together our media and our content worlds and treating our content as a performance channel, which we've never done before. So how are we putting metrics and optimizing those channels the same way we optimize media? That is a new frontier for us and something we're putting a lot of investment and effort and really smart people behind.
So slightly different perspective for me, and this is Quaker is a 140-year-old plus brand, right? And so the challenge for us is staying contemporary and relevant. And so we really are pushing hard into understanding culture and connecting with culture. And influencer is a big part of that. We mentioned Meghan Trainor. We partner with the NFL. We're the official oatmeal sponsor of the NFL, promoting the power of an oatmeal breakfast to fuel your day, whether it's athletic performance or for kids the test that they have in geometry, whatever it is. And so for us, that is the opening, and our partnership with Eli Manning, right, as promoting oatmeal and oating up as part of your pre-game or pre-grain activity is how we express ourselves. So for us, it's pushing in further into culture and leaning into borrowed credibility and influencer to really bring that forward in a believable way.
Great question. We at Odyssey think everyone should be betting big on audio, so thank you for that awesome prediction, selfishly. Another question right over here. I'll get to you. Just your name and...
Hi, I'm Lauren Albin from Gamut Media. I just have a question with regards to OTT and your KPIs. Are you still looking at that as the video completion rate, or are you tying in some type of ROAS or efficacy outside of incremental reach and frequency?
I can start, but for us, it's all ROAS, right? So it's embedded into our MMM, so we're able to understand quarterly how it's actually driving ROAS as a whole. What we are doing, though, is we're applying attention metrics to all video, whether that be OTT, digital video, or social. So I think, again, probably 2-3 years ago, we were in the mindset of force completes, right? But now we're not doing force views anymore, because what we're understanding is it's about the quality of that view and the impression versus anything else. So we're not doing the eye tracking and stuff like that. We're literally doing AVOC, right, as a pure KPI, audio visual on completion. So if we're able to look at that, we can correlate it back to ROAS, and then that's how we're looking at it.
Yeah, we're similar, and we design our content for the creative medium knowing what the challenges are. So for example, in certain environments, we know that we've got to mention the brand in the first 5 seconds and get the idea across in the first 5 seconds, even though the media might be a 15 or 30 or whatever it is. But in other environments like TikTok, so this pre-grain for the big game campaign with Eli Manning, it was all about entertainment. And so we wanted completion, right, as one of the key metrics. And we designed the content for that. We had a series of 9 videos. They were playful, fun, absolutely not the kind of content we would show anywhere else outside of the medium, designed specifically for the medium. And we had 40% above the norm for completion rate because of the strategy and the way that we deployed it.
Yeah, for us, it's in our mix. So similarly, so we're looking at ROI. We're trying to understand sales, frankly. I would look at the attention metrics as a diagnostic, personally, to understand, is the creative good? Are people sticking around? Where are they dropping off? To use that to learn and to embed into iterations or future creative executions. But if they watch 2 seconds and buy, I'm good. Like, we don't need to pay a premium for a forced view, and that's what we've learned the hard way, frankly, because it didn't make any sense. We were paying for time we didn't need. The person's going to make their decision pretty quickly. So we've moved away from that largely, but ROI.
We also found that doing a lot of force views were eroding brand equity. So whenever we were looking at our brand trackers, all of that, people were like, I don't want to watch this, right? So it's more about people raising their hands and saying it, and that actually is tied back to not only sales, but brand equity, and it's actually driving up as well.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We have time for one more question. We got a packed house up here. This is awesome. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm from Suzy. I heard a lot of mentions of like consumer insights and staying on the pulse of different consumer trends. So I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about how you're doing that when there's so much information out there, consumers are changing so quickly.
So we use Suzy, and this was a process that started at the very beginning of the pandemic, where our entire worlds, everybody in this room, like our worlds were completely disrupted, and we saw immediate shifts in food consumption patterns. Breakfast became much more of an in-home sit-down occasion. Lunchtime became oh my gosh, I need to feed an entire family sitting around the table, which is entirely different from packed lunches or lunches on the fly, so on and so forth. And so snacking behaviors completely shifted as well. It increased dramatically in home snacking consumption. And so we immediately went to work with a weekly tracker through Suzy, actually, and we, as a PepsiCo organization, have other tools that we also used, but we had a set of questions that we asked week on week on week, so we could understand and track real time what was going on in the market, and then we adjusted our marketing plans accordingly. We pulled some of our media, we replanned media, we managed the entire marketing mix based off of those real time insights.
That felt like a plan. Did you put her up to it?
It was totally not a plan. We don't even know one another.
Sure. That was too good of an answer. Now, I mean, we do all kinds of research, qualitative, quantitative, fielding studies. I think there's no one source of truth. I think you need to put together a tapestry of data and try to make decisions based upon all of those different things. And we're looking at our media performance. We're looking at engagement on our owned properties. We're doing the fielding, the usage studies and all those sorts of things. You have to, behaviors change so fast that I don't know that you can rely on only one thing. I think you just need to always be paying attention. Sometimes you get great intel from partners too. We'll work with a media agency and they'll say, or a media partner, hey, we're seeing people do this on X platform. They know better than anybody, so make friends with your media partners, I would say. You're welcome. But honestly, that's sometimes some of the best source of information. I'm asking my partners often, what does good look like on your platform? What are consumers looking for when they travel to a Vox property, to an Instagram, to a TikTok, you name it? They can often tell you that, so I think it's kind of keeping your head on a swivel. This market changes daily, so you have to be on it.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I think the one thing that I have maybe that my two panelists don't have is tons of first-party data and point of sale, right? Exactly. So in real time, I can understand what is happening from a consumer insight standpoint. Again, everything is sitting within a single CDP, and what we do, even with our media partners, is we create data partnerships, right? So we're enriching their data, they're enriching our data, right? And it's this push and pull that we're able to basically take all of this and in real time see what's happening with our own data. It doesn't mean that we don't partner with like Bera and like other sources, right, to think about that. But for us, it's really trying to figure out how does our first-party data tell the truth of our consumer, right, versus kind of this holistic macro consumer.
Incredibly jealous of that. We put boxes on trucks to Bentonville and then light prayer candles. So,
Kristin, Renee, Travis, Matt, thank you for an awesome panel. Big round of applause for everybody. Thank you so much.